Sometimes, an unexpected encounter changes everything, doesn't it? Two lives, so different, suddenly discover the true meaning of love. If you've ever found yourself thinking about how fate can turn your life upside down, then this story is for you. Here you'll see that sometimes love shows up when you least expect it, and the surprises can be more real than we imagine. And at the end, I want to hear your opinion. After watching the story, leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Your feedback is super important, and I'll love knowing how this story touched you. Let's dive in. Imagine a man who has everything: power, wealth, and respect. Jake, a 30-year-old businessman, had always lived with complete control. His suit perfectly tailored, his hair always in place, and a sharp mind for business. His tech company had revolutionized the market over the past 5 years, and he was regarded as one of the brightest men in the country. But one thing was missing from his life: a family. His carefully crafted public image was beginning to crack. The tabloids didn't forgive him, calling him cold, insensitive, and a lifelong bachelor. This started to threaten his business, and with a major deal to close in just a few days, Jake needed something that wasn't in his plans: a wife. What he didn't know was that a simple cleaner named Katerine, whom he met at an event, would change his life forever. It was a brilliant night at the Belmont mansion. Jake was at the center of an elite charity event, surrounded by important people. He moved with the elegance of a host, greeting investors, politicians, and business moguls, but his mind was elsewhere. His public image worried him. He needed to seem more human, more approachable. His mother constantly pressured him to get married. But Jake saw marriage as a distraction from his goals. As Jake made his way around the room, he suddenly heard the sound of glass shattering behind him. Katerine, a cleaner who had taken a side job to help clean up the event, had accidentally knocked over a bucket of cleaning supplies near his feet. She quickly bent down to clean the mess, her face burning with embarrassment. All she wanted was to go unnoticed and earn some money to pay her bills and her grandmother's medical treatment. Jake, who would normally be irritated by such a mistake, looked at the young woman with curiosity. She seemed different from anyone he had ever met. Instead of desperately apologizing, Katerine looked up at him and, without losing her humor, said that it was all due to her rush to finish the job. Surprisingly, Jake almost smiled. And then, a crazy idea crossed his mind. He needed a wife to save his image. And maybe this different woman, who lived life on the fly, could be the right person for it. After the incident, Jake called Katerine by name, which he overheard one of the staff shout. Approaching her calmly, he made a proposal that left her speechless. "I need a wife for 30 days. Not a real marriage, of course. It would be a business arrangement. You help me improve my image, and I'll help you solve your financial problems." Katerine was in shock. A fake marriage? Jake was clearly one of those men she had only seen in business magazines, powerful, exuding an aura of control. But at the same time, she was desperate. Her rent was overdue, her grandmother's medical bills were piling up, and she saw no other way out. With a steady gaze, despite the turmoil inside, Katerine agreed. A few days later, Jake's lawyer showed up with a contract. The deal was sealed. Katerine would be his wife for 30 days, and in return, Jake would pay off all her debts. The lawyer found the situation amusing, but it was clear that Jake took it very seriously. The first test came quickly. Katerine, used to hiding among cleaning supplies and heavy chores, now found herself in an elegant red dress, handpicked by Jake. They were attending another charity event, this time as husband and wife. Katerine was nervous. Her feet ached, her hands were sweaty, and she felt butterflies in her stomach like never before. When Jake's friends approached and began asking questions about their marriage, Katerine let out a nervous laugh. Jake, always in control, noticed and subtly slipped his arm around her waist, keeping up appearances. He knew they couldn't make any mistakes, especially in front of so many important people. "You need to take this more seriously," he whispered in her ear, while smiling at the guests. Katerine nodded, promising to improve. Despite the tension, they managed to get through the event without major issues. As the days went by, Jake and Katerine started spending more time together. At first, their interactions were awkward. They came from completely different worlds. Katerine was spontaneous, full of humor, and lived in the moment. Meanwhile, Jake was methodical, calculating, and rarely showed emotion. One morning, Katerine tried to make breakfast for Jake. The kitchen turned into chaos, with pans smoking and burnt pancakes. Jake, watching the scene with a raised eyebrow, couldn't hold back his laughter. It was the first time Katerine saw him genuinely smile. She laughed too, relieved to realize that despite everything, Jake wasn't actually angry. That small moment of laughter brought them even closer. Slowly, Katerine began to see that behind Jake's cold and calculated facade, he carried the weight of many expectations and pressures. He wasn't so different from her after all. As the contract neared its end, the tension between them grew. Katerine no longer knew what was real and what was just part of the agreement. Was she only pretending, or were her feelings for Jake genuine? One morning, Jake received an urgent call that left him shaken. Something about their contract had leaked, and the tabloids could destroy not only his image but also the billion-dollar deal he was about to close. "You'll have to act like you're more than just my contracted wife. You'll have to look like you're in love," he told Katerine with a serious expression. Her chest tightened. Was she only acting? Or had she truly fallen for Jake? That evening, they attended yet another important event, this time with journalists and investors in attendance. Jake, as always, was impeccable as he took the stage to give a speech. He began speaking as usual, but then something unexpected happened. "I need to be honest with you all," he said, his gaze settling on Katerine in the middle of the crowd. "My marriage to Katerine didn't start in the traditional way. In fact, it was based on a business arrangement." The room fell silent, and Katerine's heart raced. What was he doing? But what started as a contract has turned into something I never expected. "I've fallen in love with her." His words echoed through the hall, and Katerine, unsure of what to do, hurried out, unable to stay any longer. Jake left the stage and followed her into the garden. Jake found her in the garden, softly lit by the event's lights. Katerine stood with her back to him, trying to control the emotions flooding her. "Do you think throwing the contract away will erase everything we've been through?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I know it was fast, but I can't ignore what I feel for you anymore," Jake replied, his voice sincere. Katerine looked at him, seeing for the first time a vulnerable man, not the calculating businessman she had known. Maybe, just maybe, this was real. After a long silence, Katerine finally said, "All right, let's give it a try." Jake, without hesitation, pulled her into a tight embrace. Under the stars, their contract dissolved, leaving behind something much stronger, much more real. Months had passed since that night. Jake and Katerine were happy, building a life together, now free of contracts and lies. Katerine had started her own cleaning and organizing company, something she had always dreamed of. Jake, on the other hand, learned to balance his personal and professional life, becoming a more relaxed man, less obsessed with control. Now, they sat together in the garden of the Belmont mansion, watching the sunset. The road to this point hadn't been easy, but somehow, they had managed to turn a cold, calculated arrangement into real, lasting love. Sometimes, love arrives in the most unexpected ways. For Jake and Katerine, what started as a business deal blossomed into something much greater than either could have imagined. They came from different worlds, with distant lives and experiences, but fate brought them together in a unique way. Love has a transformative power. It doesn't care about rules, contracts, or appearances. It shows up in the most improbable moments, breaking down barriers, fears, and insecurities. Jake, the man who always controlled every aspect of his life, finally learned that true love cannot be planned. And Katerine, who had always fought to survive, discovered that she deserved more than just accepting her fate. She deserved to love and be truly loved. There, side by side, Jake and Katerine were ready to face the future. No more lies, no more arrangements, just the certainty that when love is real, it has the power to transform lives, heal wounds, and create a new story filled with hope and happiness. Love, after all, isn't about what we can control, but about what we are willing to live with an open heart. If you were moved by Jake and Katerine's story, don't forget to leave a like to support our channel. And I'm sure you'll love the other stories full of love and surprises we have for you. Click on the playlist that will appear at the end of the screen and dive into more captivating romances. Don't miss out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.